Tonight on Currents News, the impeachment trial. It could all end soon.
16 hours and 42 minutes remaining, 7 hours and 53 minutes remaining, 15 hours and 33 minutes remaining.
After hours of arguments, it comes down to today. Will the president be acquitted? Coronavirus continues to spread, and churches in China are closing their doors. And the Diocese of Buffalo tells Currents News they could be filing for bankruptcy in just a few weeks. Plus, an exclusive report from Iowa, why the caucus is priceless.
It's nice to get attention, and it's only every 4 years.
How locals make money off of politics. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Lydia Serrani. Big questions remain tonight on the fate and legacy of President Donald Trump. The Senate vote on witnesses is all but certain to be defeated at this hour. That moves the impeachment trial into the final phase of consideration on whether to acquit or convict the commander-in-chief. Karen Kafa has this story from Washington.
The Senate will convene as a court of impeachment.
Dominating the 10th day in the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump, a debate over whether or not to call for witnesses, with House managers making their last pitch.
Let's put John Bolton under oath. Let's find out who's telling the truth.
And the president's defense team opposing. Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Mitt Romney of Utah have indicated for several days that they would vote to call witnesses.
I've said for some time that I hope to be able to hear from John Bolton.
But the majority of Senate Republicans continue to oppose calling any witnesses and are prepared to acquit President Trump.
It is not our job to expand the House's investigation.
Let's get on with the work of the people and put this behind us.
Senate Democrats concede they don't have the votes to push for witnesses, but say they will continue to try and find out what John Bolton knows.
No matter what the results of today's vote, I believe the truth will eventually come out. My Republican colleagues should think about that before they vote today. The truth will eventually come out.
In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
Shots fired and a lockdown at President Trump's retreat home in Florida after a major security breach. Early this afternoon, an SUV plowed through security checkpoints at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. As the SUV sped towards the resort's main entrance, agents shot at it. Right now, we know authorities chased the SUV and 2 people are now in custody. The president and first lady are scheduled to spend the weekend there. The Pentagon has again revised the number of U.S. soldiers hurt in that Iranian missile attack on bases in Iraq to 64. That's 14 more than previously reported. They have been diagnosed with mild traumatic brain injuries. On the day of the attack, President Trump said that no U.S. soldier was injured. In China, countless Catholics will face a weekend without masses as the virus continues to spread. 3 provinces in the country have announced a ban on church services, and more are expected to follow. The death toll there has now climbed to over 200, and the infection rate is doubling daily. And this breaking news tonight, President Trump is barring the entry of foreign nationals who may pose a transmission risk of the virus. In addition, Delta, American, and United Airlines are temporarily suspending all flights between the U.S. and China tonight. This comes as the State Department is advising Americans not to travel there. More than 1,000 Americans are trapped in the epicenter of the outbreak, Wuhan. One of those citizens stuck gives us a tour of the city turned ghost town.
Wuhan is a city of 11 million people. That's more people than are in New York City. Normally it is very, very bustling around here, and you'll always see at least 20, 30 people in my neighborhood walking around, but you'll see thousands and thousands of cars on the street at any one time. Right now, however, we have very few shops open. We have one here. If we walk through, other than doing my shopping, I'm going to show around a little bit. Like I said, this area is normally very bustling, full of people. Right now, it's super barren. The only places open right now are small supermarkets like back there and shops for basic pharmaceutical supplies.
And that American citizen you just heard from is Justin Steese. He's stuck there in the city with his wife and newborn baby boy. Although the U.S. had chartered a plane to evacuate some Americans from the city on Wednesday, Justin's family did not apply. His wife is a Chinese citizen. And Britain formally left the European Union this evening, ending nearly 4 years of political fighting, but not everyone is happy about it.
The UK may be leaving the EU. London's going to carry on being open-minded, outward-looking, pluralistic, open to people, trade and ideas, and London is open.
In the referendum, 48% of voters wanted to remain part of the European Union, but the UK will immediately enter an 11-month transition period that will keep it bound to the EU's rules for now. During that time, Prime Minister Boris Johnson will race to strike new trade deals with his country's biggest economic partners. Also tonight, the Diocese of Buffalo is cautioning that a bankruptcy filing is imminent. According to a new financial report, the diocese ended its fiscal year $5 million in the red. The report cited lower revenue from donations and investments as a result of the clerical sex abuse crisis. A representative from the diocese told Currents News that the decision is likely a few weeks away. And filing would be, quote, enable the diocese to continue uninterrupted the vital work of ministry and outreach that is carried out across Western New York each and every day. President Trump largely ignored his impeachment trial last night, instead hosting a campaign rally in the great state of Iowa. It's a battleground there. Even though Trump carried the state against Clinton in 2016, its voters twice backed President Barack Obama over Republican nominees. Still, the commander-in-chief has no reservations.
So we're going to win the great state of Iowa, and it's going to be a historic landslide. And if we don't win, your farms are going to hell, I can tell you right now.
President Trump used his platform Thursday night to criticize the Democrats as socialists. Every 4 years, the tiny city of Des Moines takes center stage in the political world come the caucuses. And for Iowa, that's priceless. It's a chance for this capital city to shine and make money, but not everyone's so happy about its first in the nation status and everything that comes with it. Currents News' Michelle Powers was in Des Moines and has the story of one business that owes its future to the candidates.
It's going to be a 23-42.
The sounds of the political season. From the epicenter of the so-called middle of nowhere.
It's nice to get attention, and it's only every 4 years.
Hosting the caucus means big business for both Des Moines and Mike Draper, the owner of this t-shirt shop that's attracting all the potential leaders of the free world. Political merch is everywhere and on everything in RAYGUN. And compared to a regular January, sales are through the roof.
January retail normally dead.
RAYGUN is seeing a 30 to 40% spike in business thanks to shirts inspired by the likes of Bernie, Pete, and Elizabeth, and those who have bit the dust.
Kind of kills a little bit of the somber winter vibes. These people have something to be excited about. So caucus season gets crazy.
Local city offices estimate that the 2020 caucus will generate nearly $11.3 million for the city in just this week, leaving many wondering if it's fair Iowa has this first in the nation privileged process.
To anybody out there who has control over it, please don't take the caucuses away from us. It's all we've got.
And for Mike, like many other Iowan business owners, the caucus has been his bread and butter.
It actually works.
After college, this UPenn grad began selling t-shirts on the streets of New York until he had a brighter and warmer idea.
I should move inside.
So he headed back to the flyover state, except for that once every 4 years when it's the biggest pit stop for all things political.
People feel really welcome in here to share their opinions about what they think politically. And it's just kind of fun to talk to people.
That is, if you agree with them. But Mike says RAYGUN isn't really about agreeing as much as it is about having a good laugh. Really great stuff, progressive candidates here. What does this look like during a Republican caucus?
Well, we do shirts about pretty much everything, and so it doesn't really matter to us. You always think You're in a sweet spot when people don't really know who exactly like the joke is on.
Yet, if the votes were based on sales, right now he says Elizabeth would be taking home the win. But just weeks ago, Kamala was leading the way.
Kamala dropped out, so I
Yeah.
can't base everything off of t-shirts apparently.
But you sure can make a living. Maybe that should be sent to print. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. It's a new twist on a fun game, and it's all in an effort to end cyberbullying. More on the important exercise taking place at one Catholic high school. It's now harder to become an American immigrant here in the U.S. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is here to talk about the new Supreme Court ruling in his weekly segment, Into the Deep. And later, it dates back to the 16th century, and it's still in use. We're getting a closer look at the Vatican printing press. Our Catholic Schools Week coverage continues tonight with a special moment for 8th graders in Queens, a bittersweet milestone they won't soon forget.
Bless the sweets.
Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop Witold Morjewski blessed Our Lady Queen of Martyrs class rings. Students were called up one by one and presented with the mementos by him and Auxiliary Bishop Paul Sanchez. The rings are a way for students to always keep a piece of both their school and God with them.
The ring is a reminder of the education that they received here, and it's also a reminder of the faith foundation which we have nourished in their heart together with their families.
I've been here for 11 years and it's like my second home. So it was really nice to get this as a reminder when I graduate to high school.
Our Lady Queen of Martyrs says their students will go on to do great things and continue their Catholic education. Some have already received scholarships to top high schools like Xavier, Archbishop Malloy, and the Mary Louis Academy. Speaking of the Mary Louis Academy, leaders from the all-girl Catholic high school took the time today to teach young students an important lesson. Instead of trying to escape their problems, to face them head on. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has that story from Queens.
I want you to turn to the person next to you and I want you to give them a high five. Smile!
Unlike many other elementary schools, students here at Sacred Heart Catholic Academy in Glendale say cyberbullying isn't a big problem.
I think here we take care of it pretty well. There's none of that really going on here, which I'm proud to say.
But these middle schoolers are clued in to the horrors others face, which is why they're learning new ways to get in front of the problem.
It's in the front of my mind now. Every time I post, will I show my grandma this? And if I do, then I'll post it. And if I won't, you just try to stay positive online.
Sacred Heart rounded out Catholic Schools Week with a unique exercise designed to teach kids how to navigate the realities of cyberbullying.
Bullying is a form of aggressive behavior.
Christina Sama-Bomarito, a school psychologist at the Mary Louis Academy, came to Sacred Heart to conduct her own version of the now popular Escape the Room experience.
Wait, so we're on the third one. T-L-L, tell.
Students broke off into small groups and frantically decoded paragraphs and deciphered codes. They weren't racing to unlock themselves out of a room, but instead looking to beat the clock to discover the key to being kind online. A lesson Sama-Bomarito says is more important now than ever before.
How we behave and how we act really does have a major impact on the people around us. And so I think that is so crucial and important too, especially with digital media.
Although the activity is teaching students how to become better virtual versions of themselves, staff says the end goal is something very real.
They should basically be presenting themselves online the way they are in person. And if they take that message away from both these 2 days, we consider that a big win for the school.
In Glendale, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The NYPD is still on the hunt tonight for the two remaining thieves who took a Catholic Charities food delivery van on a joyride. The driver had left the engine running Wednesday morning while delivering food to homebound residents. It was then that three teens snuck in and stole the truck, racing off and smashing the vehicle into a car and then two homes. Medics rushed two people in the car to the hospital. One is in critical condition. The other has minor injuries. One of the joyriders, a 19-year-old girl, is now under arrest. She is charged with criminal possession of stolen property and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. Also in the Diocese of Brooklyn, Catholics are voicing their opinion about a Supreme Court vote on immigration and public assistance. We turn now to our bishop's opinion, an international expert on the subject. He sat down with Ed Wilkinson for this week's Into the Deep. Ed?
Thank you. Bishop DiMarzio is here with us today, and we're going to talk about immigration because the bishop is an expert in immigration. Bishop, there was a recent Supreme Court decision. It was a rather technical, legal procedure, but it basically allowed the Trump administration to go ahead with its policy of perhaps people who come here and they go on public assistance would not be eligible to receive a green card later on. How do we feel about that as a church?
Well, it's a complicated issue. First of all, the Supreme Court judged the law. And the law is there, has been right from the beginning, this public charge law, part of the immigration service, which is to avoid people coming and becoming a burden to our society. It was in the 20s that it was put in, 1920s. And it's remained on the books, and it probably needs to be adjusted. Because then, really, there was very little public assistance available. So it meant if somebody would go to a poorhouse, I mean, we actually have poorhouses where people who were homeless had to go, and they became a public charge, and that was the aim of it. Today, public assistance is a part of our society. It's the safety net. Food stamps for people that are low-income wage earners, other kind of things, Medicaid for health issues. Going to an emergency room, that would be disqualifying a person. So the society has changed completely so that you can't survive in our society today without some kind of assistance, and this is how we make the society work. So I can't fault the Supreme Court. There was kind of a reaction to lower courts stopping the president wanted to do many things because a court that's a federal court with a judge could stop almost anything. So that's a strange thing, but we are a country of laws, and there's some checks and balances. So that's maybe annoying, but the fact of the matter is there is this system where things can be held up if they seem to be. Somebody has to bring a suit to say this is why we think this is unjust or it's not workable. So it is a complicated thing. It's unfortunate because permanent residency is how we keep people on the road to citizenship. Yeah. We can't have an underclass in our society that can't vote, that can't take any benefits, but has to work. So it's very unfair.
Of course, the argument on the other side is that we have so much public assistance these days that we could affect the system in general, and citizens might be affected.
Permanent residents don't have access to very much. Undocumented have access to anything, but permanent residents, see, it's a very strange thing. Green card. That's before you come to the United States. So it's not a large group of people that will be affected by this, but they will be hit hard if they're waiting to get a green card. They're here already, or there's what they call adjustment of status before they get the green card. So it's a complicated thing, but it's a very negative approach to immigration. In fact, I just read a report the other day where there's over 50 different regulations that have been in place or enforced with a strict interpretation by the Trump administration, basically discourage immigration. They want a different kind of immigration. They want immigration only of high-skilled people that they think will benefit the country. Unfortunately, we're not the same kind of nation as Canada or Australia that can afford to do that because they're small. They're able to pinpoint what they need. Very difficult to put that system into the United States.
Yeah. Pope Francis, of course, in his approach to immigration, he's always saying that we shouldn't be so concerned about the letter of the law, that we've really got to be concerned about the people first, right?
Well, of course you want to be concerned about people. That's the whole idea. That's why you have laws, so that people will benefit. But when you're looking to enforce them against certain classes of people or types of people, then you have to really reconsider.
Okay, well, Bishop, that's why you're the expert on this. Okay, thanks for being with us today. Now, back to the news desk.
Thank you so much, Ed and Bishop DiMarzio. Also today, President Trump signed that much anticipated executive order to combat human trafficking. The order creates a new position that will be solely devoted to the cause. Since taking office, the president has also signed into law measures aimed at curbing online predators and held listening sessions with survivors and advocates alongside his daughter, Ivanka Trump. Right now, the new position has yet to be filled. There are pressing matters taking place within the walls of the Vatican. But it's not what you may think. A special look at this ancient printing press right after the break. Plus, a Super Bowl bet between two prelates has a grand prize. So what is it? Well, here's a clue for you. There's a lot at stake, so don't get crabby. Stay with us. But before we go to break, a programming note about our special series on human trafficking. Next Thursday, women of faith on the front lines of a growing international crisis.
Trafficking is increasing instead of diminishing.
The relentless battle to end the evils of modern-day slavery across the globe. Part 4 of our special series, Human Trafficking Exposed, next Thursday on Currents News. There's a printing press in the heart of Vatican City that's been there since the 16th century, and it's churned out every single pontifical document since then. Melissa Butts is watching the process, and she says the ancient technique is still fit to print.
Printing, cutting, binding, and packaging. Every book, document, and newspaper that comes out of the Holy See goes through this entire long process, and it all starts here at the Vatican's printing press. These large sheets of paper are about to be transformed. They're printed on one of 3 color printers inside the Vatican, studied, examined, and then sent to another room to become the final product, which could be a magazine, book, newspaper, or small pamphlet. The office's coordinator, Guido Benfante, says since its beginnings in 1587, the printing press has always been unique. It's the only typography of its kind in the world. We take care of the realization of the letterpress and packaging of documents for the Holy Father and Secretary of State. We also print works for the various dicasteries and clients of the Holy See. Management changed during the centuries, as well as its purpose. It served global missionaries with printing abilities in 23 alphabets, also making dictionaries, grammar books, and the Bible. Yet the antique style of how they made their books remained. We still use glue, thread, leatherbacks, and parchment paper made from sheepskin. It still works very nicely. The current warehouse was constructed in 1908 and includes an area for graphic designers, printers, binders, and transporters. It was then expanded in 1991 by John Paul II, before it became a part of the Vatican's dicastery for communication in 2018. But this delicate work has also seen a decrease with the rise of digitalization, as now this costly material and the costly machinery is put into question with the size of the circulation of each text. But as long as the popes keep writing and as long as the Vatican keeps publishing, the typography and the Vatican's printing press won't be going anywhere anytime soon. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Finally tonight, Super Bowl Sunday is almost here, and Catholic leaders from the 2 competing cities have come up with a delicious deal. Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco and Bishop James Johnston of Kansas City are wagering on the winner. If the San Francisco 49ers lose, Archbishop Cordileone will send Dungeness crabs to Bishop Johnston. If the Kansas City Chiefs lose, Bishop Johnston will be sending some of their famous steaks to the Archbishop. The bishops also say that they are praying for safe travel and no injuries. And that's Currents News. I'm Lydia Serrana. Thank you so much for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time. Good night.